Welcome back. The deployment utilities are used to deploy and undeploy the XDM server and also to stop, start, and restart the server. In addition, there is a special maintenance mode that can be achieved by using another deployment utility. In the first section of this training, I will present the automatic deployment. This is the recommended flow. The second section of the video will demo the manual deployment flow on Linux. In addition to the command line utilities, in VX 1.1, you have the option to use the configuration manager and the diagnostic dashboard to run many of the deployment utilities. I will demonstrate this as well. Server Deploy is your tool to deploy the XDM server. As shown on previous trainings, you have the option to customize the configuration before starting the deployment. Now that the pending configuration is ready, you can start the deployment of the XDM server. During the deployment process, the Server Deploy utility uses the pending configuration in order to set up the components that establish the XDM server. Components such as the web application server and potentially the embedded database. It will also set the connection to the database as well as other resources exactly as defined in the pending configuration. Using the automatic deployment mode, Server Deploy also installs MGC MDS, Monitoring and Diagnostic Daemon, which controls and monitors all processes that are part of the XDM server. The MGC MDS daemon launches those processes and monitors them that if any of them fail to run, MGC MDS will immediately relaunch it appropriately. Although MGC MDS installed as root, also run as root, or local system admin on Windows, the derived processes that it will launch are recommended to run with a different user, for example, MGC server user. Let's watch it in action. You can see that in the first step, before starting with the actual deployment, many diagnostics checks are performed. These diagnostics verify that all conditions are ready and that all provided configuration is valid before it enables the deployment to begin. Upon successful deployment, you will receive a summary of all the URLs that you can provide to the clients in order to communicate with the XDM server. XDM server has a special maintenance mode which prevents client access to the server while enabling local admin to access and manage the XDM server. This maintenance mode was mainly created to support use cases that require maintenance operations on the server, such as fixing a broken LDAP server connection and executing backup and restore operations. To switch XDM server to maintenance mode, run server maintenance mode -on. Providing -off will turn off the maintenance mode. How do I update the XDM server? Well, there are two main types of update: a configuration update and a software update. In most cases, a configuration update does not require a restart of the server. Use server config update utility for that. If you need a software update or a configuration update that does require restart of the XDM server, you should use this server update utility. Yet there is another option. You can use the configuration manager, and based on the configuration changes or the availability of a new software, it will update the server with the appropriate utility. Here is the full list of configuration changes that only requires server config update instead of the full server update. There are two main differences between an automatic deployment and a manual deployment flow. The first one is that a manual flow does not require root permission to be given to the user who runs the deployment and therefore does not inherit root privileges for the MGC MDS daemon of the XDM server. This reduces a potential security risk. For many customers, this is an IT administration requirement. The second difference is that a manual deployment is not fully automated, so you should take into account that there are some manual steps that need to be taken. This is a slower deployment process and may introduce error because of the human factor. After deciding to deploy the server with a manual flow, you should continue managing the server and running all other utilities with the same non-root user that you selected for the deployment. Otherwise, inconsistency of the settings and misleading diagnostics information may harm the environment. The extra manual step, which is the prerequisite for manual deployment, is that you should have the monitoring and diagnostic daemon, MGC, MDS, running with the non-root user of your choice. Currently, non-root deployment is only supported on Linux. As for the input XML file, under the Deployment Options section, you should set the MGC MDS service establishment to manual, so that all the derived processes run with the same non-root user that you just defined for the MGC MDS daemon to run with. I'm opening a terminal with the non-root user, MGC server user. I navigate to the SUT scripts directory, and now I should be able to start the MGC MDS daemon. Now that you have the prerequisites established, you are ready to start the deployment of the XDM server. To do that, run server deploy. In case you need to undeploy the XDM server, you should use the server undeploy utility. Note that the undeploy utility is only available as a command line utility, but not yet from the server actions bar of the configuration manager. Please remember to run a backup before undeploying the XDM server. I would like to show you that from the diagnostic dashboard, you can run, for example, server stop or server restart. There is a progress bar to show the status of the operation, and you can also click to view more details. Until the XDM server is successfully deployed. In this video, we demonstrated the deployment utilities of the XDM server. We discussed automatic versus manual deployment flow. We emphasized the important role of the MGC MDS daemon, the special maintenance mode of the server, and also the server update and server undeploy utilities.